Let's get ready to rumble!
It doesn't matter!
It is now time
A little bit of the bubbly.
to turn your attention to
That's gotta be...
Cause that's the bottom line!
the Titantron.
And welcome back to the Titantron. It is the season premiere. We're back. Finally back after a little bit of a hiatus. There's no better time than right now to get right back into the podcast of the Titantron talking about wrestling. Because we had a great Hell in a Cell pay-per-view this past Sunday. But before we get into all of that, don't forget that you can listen to the Titantron on Anchor, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, you name it, we're there. But more specifically today, and for the first time ever, St. Francis College's YouTube page, Terrier TV. Once a month, I'm going to be putting up a Titantron podcast episode on the YouTube, and it's going to be for what we're doing today, a WWE pay-per-view review. And that is why I have two guests with me here today. Both are students at St. Francis College. I would like to introduce you to Keanu and Ali. Guys, how are we doing today?
Hi, guys. Good.
All right, cool. So, like I said, today we're going to be talking about Hell in a Cell. I thought it was a really, really good pay-per-view. Honestly, one of the best since they came to the Thunderdome. And even, before that, when they had empty crowds. Ever since then, I thought this has been one of their better pay-per-views. So I want to branch out to you guys. What did you think of the show? So let's start with Ali on this one.
I honestly thought it was a really good show, although the outcome was predictable. I feel like the way the outcome turned out was unexpected, but predictable at the same time. So it was a really good show.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I thought a lot of the outcomes of certain matches were pretty predictable. But I mean, I don't think that really takes away from the fact that we got some really good matches. So Keanu, what was your favorite match out of? I'm guessing it's one of the three Hell in a Cell matches.
I'd say my favorite match of all of them is probably mostly Sasha Banks versus Bailey for the SmackDown Women's Championship. I like that match more because it mostly deals with the heartbroken friendship that Bailey when he betrayed to her back on Sasha, and realized that she after she has the saloon neck injury she had, she just fought her way to it in this cage match, which is really very somewhat emotional.
Definitely very emotional. I think the biggest selling point for these matches on Hell in a Cell was just the storytelling involved in all of them, and it really, that was especially in the first two Hell in a Cells, which we'll get to in a little bit. But all throughout the show, you could really tell that there was a lot of emotion, like you said, Keanu, and a lot of storytelling involved. And Ali, you said that your favorite match was Drew McIntyre versus Randy Orton. We were talking about that off camera.
Yeah.
And why not start with the main event to start up the show? So we're going to start with the end of the show to start the show, if that makes sense to our viewers. I'm sure it does not. But regardless, so we had our main event was Randy Orton versus Drew McIntyre. This was the third match in a trilogy of matches so far. I don't think we're going to get another match out of these guys, but who knows? This was the first match that we actually have a definitive ending to, right? At SummerSlam, we had the quick pinfall. The whole tagline was, "You never saw it coming." And that was really what it was there. Then at Clash of Champions, the ambulance match, and we had a lot of legends interfering on behalf of Drew, so another loss for Randy there. But now we lock these two up in Hell in a Cell. We got some really cool spots, and at the end of the match, we got Randy Orton hitting the RKO for his 14th WWE World Heavyweight Championship. Ali, did you think that this was the correct decision to take the title off of Drew?
To think about it, you have to think on both perspectives. And honestly, for Drew, I feel like it was a bit too early just because it took him so long to get to where he's at right now. He was off the company for a while, then he came back, then he went back down to NXT. So I feel like it was a little bit too early for him because he really got the whole characteristics to be the champion. But for Randy, he's at the point of his life where he's about to go off to retirement or take a break. So I feel like for him, it was perfect timing to capture the title. And I feel like they both were good opponents for each other. But I just
Oh,
feel
definitely.
like they're too early for Drew.
Yeah, I have to agree with you there. I mean, it was, in my eyes, if it was anyone else, I would say probably not. But for Drew, it might have been a little bit too early. He had his big WrestleMania moment. And when you have that type of moment, you really want to ride off of the, level of excitement that it was for him to get that title.
Yeah.
But then, like you said, you have to look at it at both perspectives. And then you look at it from the viewpoint of Randy Orton. And, this is his now 17th, 18th year in the WWE as a wrestler, period.
Yeah.
And, I've been saying it since the start. This is the year of Randy Orton. And, it's very weird to say, with him being such an older wrestler. But he's had a really good program with Edge, a lot of really good segments with the legends and, punt kicking Ric Flair and Shawn Michaels, whoever else. Really good segments like that. And then you come down to the storyline with Drew, which I thought, honestly, was one of the better storylines of the year.
I think it's a little bit I think it wasn't the right time for Drew to be stripped from the title. Not stripped, but like be taken away from him from Randy Orton. But I know that I know been with WWE for like almost 20 years, and then now he's like another title shot. And to me, I think it's like I think it was a very okay, I think it was an okay decision to have Drew lose the title. I know he's gonna like continue. He's gonna fight his way to get the title spotlight in the near future. So
Right.
I guess I believe that Drew is gonna become World Heavyweight Champion again one day in the years coming.
Oh yeah,
Probably
definitely.
could be but I know that I know Randy Orton is like this is 14-time champion. So I will see I guess to see what he has planned next in his career.
Putting veterans up against each other or putting a veteran up against a younger guy is really going to be the best case scenario for any option when it comes to WWE doing a WrestleMania match. So, I think putting the title on Randy is definitely an example of that. So we could both get some really good veteran matches, but we could also eventually let him lose it to a more younger talent like a Keith Lee, or maybe Drew McIntyre wins it from him again. And that's all down the line. We got to see what they do with Randy Orton. But for now, we have a new world champion in Randy Orton. Switching gears now. Let's go on to the second Hell in a Cell match. Keanu, you said this was your favorite. It was Bayley versus Sasha Banks. And honestly, Keanu, I'm going to have to agree with you there because this was honestly one of the best women's matches that I have seen in recent history. And I have to say that they delivered to the highest degree. They pulled out all the stops on this one, a lot of stunts with weapons and, storytelling, all the way up until the finish where you have, Sasha basically replicating the ending of TakeOver Brooklyn, their match, with her stomping on the foot. But this time, you put the chair on the foot. There's a little bit more storytelling to add to it. And overall, you have Sasha Banks coming out with the win, becoming the new SmackDown Women's Champion. And ultimately, she is now I believe the second Women's Grand Slam Champion. She's won, Raw, SmackDown, NXT Women's titles, and the Women's Tag Team titles. So she's done it all. Keanu, I'm going to come to you on this one because you did say it was your favorite. How much did you enjoy this match? Well, I know you enjoyed it a lot. Bad question on my behalf. But do you think, similar to the Drew discussion we just had, do you think this was the correct ending to put the title on Sasha? Do you think it was a little bit too early with the whole story that they've been telling? Or do you think that this was the correct moment to finally end this story between Sasha and Bayley?
I think it's the correct decision to have Bayley lose the title because she'll hold the title for over like 380 days. This is mostly over a year, and for me I think that Sasha I think it's like the time for Sasha to have become a world champion, like because I know she won a lot of championships from different brands. Like she early on into the mid teens and 2010s. that she was NXT women's champion. And then at the same time, but was having an NXT takeover Brooklyn, which took place like 5 years ago, like during the SummerSlam weekend in Barclays Center, and because those two were fighting very the same path of each other, but it's mostly different in opposite sides. And now 5 years later, with this with the Hell in the Cell match with for the SmackDown Women's Champion. It really had great depth to it. With more
definitely.
with
I think there was a lot of layers
yeah.
of storytelling involved, which made it so much better.
It feels very powerful for me because it deserves because Sasha deserved that the SmackDown Women's Championship title, mostly because to try to make a more trying to become a more like I don't know what to say, but I would say that because Sasha Banks is like the one of the most greatest great woman performer of all time.
Oh, without a doubt.
Yeah.
And I feel like this match definitely just elevates that point to more extremes. You know, I feel like in many ways she is one of the greatest, but at the same time, I feel like she's one of the more underrated women. Like, we don't really talk enough about how great Sasha Banks is as a performer. But, you know, we've talked enough about Sasha Banks for now. Allie, you know, there's all this talk about Sasha, right? She's, you know, she finally did it, finally won the title. But what about Bayley? Like, you know, she had this long, over a year championship run. Where does she go from here? You know, does she stay in the SmackDown Women's title feud? Does she do something else? What do you think?
In all honesty, like going back to what you said, Sasha, she is one of the most underrated wrestlers. That being said, because all her title reigns, I don't think they reach more than 100 days. She's been, I think, 6-time champion, and in all those times, it's always been 90 to 60 days reigning. So I expected Bayley to lose, and she did lose because her days was over a year. So that was like not really shocking. But for Sasha, I feel like they should give her a push and give her like a good defensive title run, just because we never seen that from her.
Right.
I do feel like Bayley's gonna go at it with Sasha just one more time and just take that out. Like, that's just what I feel.
Right.
But it would be nice to see Sasha in a long title run, because so far it's been like 3 to like 5 months of just like a short time.
A lot of people have been talking about how they really want this feud to extend into future months, like WrestleMania, and make that a WrestleMania like main event. So
No, I feel like that would be too much, just because we will have to save some of those storylines for the future.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I was honestly one of those people who wanted it to extend to WrestleMania, but I feel like once you have the type of match that they had on Sunday, there's no way to top that, which I'm sure there is because they're great wrestlers and all. But like, I feel like this is the like ideal match just to end it. You know, you have your all-out war, you finally did it, and now, like you said, we could do a rematch just so Sasha can get her final, you know, go at Bayley and finally defend the title. But after that, I think there's so many opportunities and so many other women that she could go up against that you don't really need to extend this feud with Bayley. Bayley can go do something else. And for now, I think this is really the Sasha, that's a tongue twister, the Sasha show. But regardless, we're going to move on to the next topic, which was the third and final Hell in a Cell match. We had Roman Reigns versus J Uso. This was a story that not a lot of people probably would have assumed they would be seeing in 2020, where Roman Reigns is the top dog, finally the big dog, if you will, in the WWE, going up against his cousin, one of the Usos. But to almost everyone's surprise, and maybe not everyone's surprise, but at least to my surprise, this has been a very amazing story that they've told. And it's really based around their family. You know, of course, the Clash of Champions match was so, pulled at the heartstrings, if you will. And that was even more in this match, where, of course, the stakes were even higher. If Jay lost this match, the Usos and their families would be out of the Anoa'i family. So big stakes there. But then you have the match itself, and I thought it was really, really well done, very passionate. And at the end of the day, you had Jimmy come in, try to save Jay from Roman hitting him with the steps. And, you had all these like road agents and refs around. And then Jimmy's like talking to him. They bring up like their real names, Josh, Joe, John.
Mm-hmm.
And Roman starts crying. But obviously, he is the tribal chief. He doesn't care about family at this point. So he goes ahead and he puts his new guillotine chokehold, which I really like, on Jimmy. And so Jay quits on Jimmy's behalf. And he's still champion. Of course, he's still champion. I don't think anyone really expected Jay to win that match, unfortunately. But it's a really good match. Keanu. So, like I said, this wasn't really a story that a lot of people were expecting. But do you think that this story with Jay was enough to truly put Roman at the top of the WWE? Because, for so long, we've been putting him, at least somewhere in the top. But, a lot of people have been hesitant to do so because, there's always that group of fans that don't really like Roman. They think he's overrated, blah, blah, blah. Do you think after this story with Jay that he's finally, rightfully the top dog in the WWE?
I think I agree, yes, because the Roman Reigns have been champion for mostly for many times throughout the years since he first won the Royal Rumble back in 2015, which is 5 years ago, and to me right now with the Universal Champion, I think it's like the right decision to have have Roman on the top of the mountain for that championship. And but to me, I think the storyline between Roman and his cousin J Uso, where they fought the I Quit match, and it's very good. I think it was the best thing I could seen, because there's been a lot of things about family and all that who deserves the top of the mountain and all, like
Right.
who deserves to be the top chief and all.
I think I would have to disagree with you guys on how Roman is viewed.
Okay.
Just because I am on the side where I do feel like he's a little overrated.
Right.
Which I feel like all that changed it once they made him sign up with Paul Heyman. The person you've seen always as your champion was either Brock Lesnar or Roman Reigns, and we've seen this going back and forth, on and off. And I do feel like he was a little overrated, but once he signed up with Paul Heyman, it was all like they were trying to make him the next Brock Lesnar. Because if you notice now during the shows, he's all quiet and
Right.
he don't talk that much. He's all tough, walking all buff,
But I think the littlest difference between them, which I like, is that Roman's kind of with Paul for his benefit, not necessarily as a friendship. Whereas Brock and Paul were they're not really friends, but there was more of a connection between them.
Yeah. And I feel like that will develop, but if they still are together, so maybe over time you could see their relationship go beyond.
Right.
The match, it was pretty much predictable. No one was gonna expect one of the Usos to win.
Yeah, very true.
But even though it wasn't my favorite, I really wanted them to win. But it was so predictable just because Roman, he's been solo. He's known to be the dog, just to be by himself, independent.
Mm-hmm.
So overall, the match, it was pretty good, pretty predictable.
And at the end of the day, I think we got a really good storyline. I think we have to end it there, though, for the Roman and Jay storyline. I think we've told as much of a story as we can. Maybe we'll do a Jimmy match, but I don't think it's really necessary. He still might be injured, so we're going to have to wait and see on that. We've talked enough about the Hell in a Cell matches. All of them were amazing in their own ways. Before we even got to Hell in a Cell, there was a lot of stuff happening beforehand that, we should really bring up a little bit about. And one of those, which, almost the infamous group, I should say at this point, of Mustafa Ali and Retribution. They gave them Mustafa Ali as their leader. He's really good on the mic. We obviously know he's very good in the ring. And then on Raw, they all get wiped out by The Fiend. So not the greatest look right off the bat for the new look Retribution. Keanu, I want to ask you because, obviously everyone has their opinion on Retribution. I certainly have my opinion on them. What's your take on Retribution? Do you think these guys are legit, or do they really just not have a plan for them at this point, and they're kind of just treading water with the Hurt Business right now?
I think for Retribution, they I know that they cause a lot of destruction throughout many months, but to me, I believe that they could have some plans in the future. I think that the Hurt Business is gonna take them out, I guess. But Mustafa Ali's the leader is good. Is that and I know that they're gonna have like a gigantic rivalry between one another. So I'll see how it plays out.
Yeah, that's really all it is. For a new thing like this, you really need, as you said, you need to see how it plays out.
Honestly, I feel like the Hurt Business, it's mostly for them, and I completely like how they're on top right now. The reason why I don't see Retribution going anywhere is because they all from NXT. I already feel like the NXT people are making a name for themselves. However, I feel like for Survivor Series, it might be just NXT, SmackDown, and Raw, or it might be Retribution, Raw, and SmackDown. It's either one of them. It can be both because they basically the same group. But I feel like it's going to be the same thing as the hacker, because I remember there being a SmackDown hacker. So I feel like it's all going to go downhill for them.
Yeah, I don't, I really do hope that they factor in Retribution somehow into Survivor Series. I don't know if there's going to be enough time to do that, or if they're just going to go Retribution versus Hurt Business at Survivor Series. But I really do hope that Retribution, within the next few weeks, somehow, takes over, I guess you can call it.
I would say it reminds me of Nexus. The only difference was that Nexus, they actually made a statement,
Right. Yeah, there's been a lot of comparisons to Nexus. And like you said, they actually, Nexus did stuff. They beat up Bret Hart. They beat up The Undertaker. They beat up random guys backstage. And even their first night, they beat up John Cena, CM Punk, and ripped up the entire ringside, which, Retribution did that too. But, they didn't do it with, goofy chainsaws and, spray paint and stuff. Nexus looked like a bunch of, dominant guys. We're just going to have to wait and see. But another story that was developing coming into Hell in a Cell was the Money in the Bank. We hadn't heard about really anything for the briefcase up until this story kicked off with Otis, who was the former Money in the Bank holder, with his partner Tucker, going up against The Miz and Morrison. On Friday, we had the courtroom thing with JBL, Ron Simmons, Teddy Long, which I thought was a really funny segment. And it all brought us to Hell in a Cell, where The Miz won the Money in the Bank briefcase once again. This is now his second time as Money in the Bank holder. But he did it thanks to the help of Tucker, who turned on Otis.
I didn't see it coming either because I thought it was going to be some kind of little random thing that we've seen a bunch of time in other wrestling matches. But with that, I didn't witness it at all because I know that these guys were got separated since they drafted to since Tucker drafted Raw and Otis stayed on SmackDown. So to me, I think that this is one of the shocking and almost I felt like I was disappointed, but but I told you I understand why Tucker did it, but it's just not some kind of like a rivalry between the drafts and all, but what we're going might see in the Survivor Series next month, but who knows? But yeah.
Back to what you said, it was really confusing just because when Otis won his Money in the Bank, he won it unfair. Like he didn't climb and unclip the Money in the Bank. Like it just fell to his hands.
Yeah.
So I feel like this match was to make it even, but then with Tucker coming in, it made it unfair again.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you can look at it really from the viewpoint of Otis because, technically he won the match, like you said, but he, briefcase fell in his hands. And then you got to look at it from the viewpoint of, was really Otis going to be the one to cash in the briefcase to begin with? Like, can we really see Otis being a viable champion going up against, I guess now, Randy Orton, but I was going to say Drew McIntyre or Roman Reigns, and I don't think so. Now that we're continuing the story between Tucker and Otis, do you think that this is, do you think they're going to go ahead and do brand versus brand on, like a weekly basis? Or do you think it's just going to be, like, how do you think they're going to go about this? Because, you got to think, since it's brand versus brand at Survivor Series, that they're going to fight them. So how do you see them going around the draft like this?
I think it might be to me. I think it might be going to be like more a little bit complicated, but it's since that they're on both shows, it's could be like Otis like showing up and like probably attacking Tucker. It's almost like similar to when a random superstar from a different show that's coming in and attack their future opponent for some kind of pay-per-view. Similar to what Randy Orton did with Brock Lesnar at SummerSlam back 4 years ago when Randy Orton was on SmackDown on Superstar and Brock was on Raw. I think Otis might do something similar, but probably might be different. So who knows? It might be coming to more bitter rivalry, I guess.
I think we're talking about underrated wrestlers. I think Tucker is one of the more underrated performers in WWE. He's really a really good powerhouse wrestler, and from what I've seen in the recent weeks, he's really good on the mic, and he has a really good presence to him.
I do feel like Tucker, he needs that elevation to be on top, because I've seen his matches and he's really not that bad. He just needs that push, and I feel like Otis would give him that push. Yeah,
I mean, I think they got about as much as they could right now with Otis. Mm-hmm. It really just comes out to, where they go from here with Otis. And I think that's really going to be told through this story with Tucker at the end of the day. Yeah. So we have talked enough about Hell in a Cell. We've talked enough about the build-up to Hell in a Cell. We have one last question that I want to bring out to you guys. We're always, whenever you talk about wrestling, you always look towards the future, right? We mentioned it like so many times today. The question is always, where do you go from here? And where do you go from here in wrestling fans' eyes is, where do you go when you start up the road to WrestleMania? WrestleMania, of course, is the biggest show of the year, and always where you have the biggest stories culminating with the biggest matches, star power, great wrestling, all in the showcase of the immortals, as they call it. So what I want to ask you guys is, I want to give you the writer's pen, right? The metaphoric writer's pen, if you will. If you were to write up the match for the main event of this year's WrestleMania with any active or semi-active wrestlers in the WWE right now, right? Like, you can't use like retired guys, that's cheating. If you were to choose, it could be a tag team match, it could be a singles match, any stipulation. If you were to book the main event or a main event worthy match at WrestleMania, what would you choose, and what would be the story? If you want to add a story to it, what would you do there? And I could start with Ali on this one.
It would be a fatal 5-way match for a WWE champion.
Ooh.
It would be against Rey Mysterio, his son Dominic. So no tag team, like it would be everyone against each other. It would be Angel Garza. What's his name? Oh, his name's not clicking right now. My bad. It'll be Andres, and it would be the other guy. It's just I can't pronounce the name because it has the R in it.
Humberto Carrillo.
Yes, it will be all 5 of them.
Wow.
Just because I know 2 of them are related. No, 4 of them are related, but it's 2 different families.
Okay.
And then I feel like it would bring back some of that Latin culture back in the early 2000s where we had Eddie Guerrero against Rey Mysterio. So I feel like by having all 5 of them face for a title, it would really just bring different kinds of audience, you know? You see WWE right now, they're doing such a great job with the cultures, different culture background. We see this with the Hurt Business. And it'll be nice to see like a Latin one and, you know, just different cultures to rise up the audience, you know?
Yeah, of course. And this is a match that, you know, all these guys, except for Ray, but, you know, all of these guys are very young. So you could do this match like years from now, and it'll still, you know, once you get them to that star power, and then you put the world title on them, possibly you could even make this a ladder match. We're talking 5 cruiserweights here. You could throw a ladder match on them. This is the type of match that I certainly would really like to see for the world title. Awesome stuff. Keanu, I'm going to send it over to you. What would you say is your top match for WrestleMania?
It would be Tommaso Ciampa versus like Randy Orton or something.
Ooh.
Tommaso Ciampa versus Randy Orton. You know that Tommaso Ciampa from NXT. He could have a WrestleMania moment. So
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
that's, you know, one of the matches that they've been talking a lot about. You know, I think Randy even said that he kind of wants to work with guys in NXT, one of them being Tommaso Ciampa. And Ciampa's one of the guys that, you know, once he comes to if he ever comes to the main roster, he's one of the guys that could really make an impact immediately. And you can throw him in the world title scene and he'll fit right in. Really good matches from both of you. My match, you know, we're talking dream match, and this is a little bit cheating on my behalf. But I feel like this is a match that, you know, it needs to happen. If he's ever going to come back for one match, it needs to be this one. And he said that if he ever comes back, he wants to do this match. I got to go with The Rock versus Roman Reigns for the Universal title if we're doing it at 37. The story's there. You know, you could talk all about the Samoan dynasty family, bringing the Usos again, you know, the whole story. It could just play into itself. You could have some really good promos with, you know, Paul Heyman going up against The Rock. I think that could be amazing. You know, bring in just everyone from the family. You know, talk about like Rikishi or like the Wild Samoans. We saw them at Hell in a Cell.
Yeah, I could agree with you on that because right now I feel like it's a perfect story for this year because you have the Usos.
Right. Yeah,
like,
I mean...
You even saw it in Hell in a Cell where the tribes, they came back to like crown Roman with the flowers around him.
Right, which I thought was really cool. Yeah, I mean, I think this is as any good of a time to do that match is right now. You know, overall, I think this is the perfect time to do it. And honestly, I think it's the perfect time to do any of the matches that you guys brought up. And if we were to put 3 matches on a card at those 3 matches on any card of WrestleMania, I'm sure we will sell the house and make a fantastic WrestleMania. But with that being said, I think this is the perfect spot to end the first ever Terrier TV edition of the Titantron podcast. I want to thank you two for coming on this episode. I am sure that we will be back once again to review Survivor Series and maybe some other shows. Who knows? But with that being said, I want to thank the viewers for listening or watching wherever you are, listening to us talk about Hell in a Cell. If you are on YouTube, make sure that you hit the like button and make sure to subscribe to Terrier TV for all things, all great shows. You know, you have the Meme Review, SFC The New Beat, Sports Junkies, plus much more. So with that out of the way, I want to thank you all for watching and listening, and we will be back for another episode of the Titantron. But until then, take care.